Are you guys ready up there? All right. All right, quiet on the set.
Welcome back to another episode of Adventures in Movies. I am Blake. I'm your host for this episode and a few episodes this month, I presume. And I guess the reason why is I'm kind of the resident pothead of the group, I would say. My college years are fuzzy, to say the least. And as per usual, I'm joined by a couple guys, resident Geddy Lee impressionist, known Geddy Lee impressionist, and movie editor at AIPT, Nathaniel.
If you choose to have no choice, you still have made a choice. Or something like that.
Yes, good to have you, buddy. And to his pod left and resident, he's the only guy I get my news from about the impending doom that is encroaching on society. Danny.
That's me. Everything is terrible. Stay in your house, wash your hands, and maybe spare a square.
Oh, shit. I found toilet paper in the wild today. It was at the store I happened to stop into. I bought it.
You fucking
I wiped them out. No, I just got one pack. I was a nice guy.
No pun intended.
You shouldn't announce that kind of stuff out loud. You're asking for an ass whooping.
No kidding. I won't say where. It's my hidden gem through the apocalypse. But how you guys holding up?
Doing good. You got feeling a little worse knowing that you're hoarding all the toilet paper, but you know.
How else did you guys roll?
Okay, cool. You just saved yourself a dachshund.
I'll just get one of these spicy pickle beers that we were talking about throughout the weekend.
Yes.
We'll just do a soft trade.
All right, we got a barter action. Follow us on follow Danny on the Twitter for some of that action. Yeah. So it's the best made Martin House pickle beer. This one is spicy. I've not yet had it, and it sounds delicious.
It's so fucking good. So fucking good.
I love beer. So Pat, go ahead.
I was gonna say that you reminded me of last week you mentioned The Stand, and I haven't read The Stand since either I was a senior in high school or I was starting college. So I decided to revisit it, and I never realized when you were talking about it, I was like, yes, I remember, the general premise of it. I didn't realize how close it parallels exactly what's going on right now. I'm on chapter 4, I think. So I'm very, very, very early into this.
Oh, so that's actually the scariest part of the whole book is the people coming down with it. Yeah, no, yeah.
And it's crazy because the people are coughing and they're like, oh man, I hate a summer cold. And it's kind of just like Corona. Like there's no, noticeable symptoms at all. Like you can't tell.
And then you just die, basically. Yeah, you kind of.
And then you're dead. Yeah, and some people are kind of like, maybe we should go into quarantine. And then like the CDC is involved, and they're kind of like, okay, this person has been in touch with this person who's been in touch with this many people. We should put this many people in quarantine, and it's parts of it are set in Texas, so it's a pretty crazy read. I mean, I've always enjoyed the book, but I mean, it has. I have a totally different outlook on it now.
Badass.
Oh no, and it's really good. I mean, Under the Dome is another perfect example of like when Stephen King's setting up like the bad shit that's happening, and it's like the fallout immediately thereafter, some bad stuff. That's like his best stuff. And The Stand is I don't know, that might be my favorite book of his. It really might be. I think I wonder if that's gotten delayed. Do you know actually if that's gotten delayed too with all this stuff, the CBS All Access? The Stand?
I think everything is running smoothly, isn't it?
It's funny you should say that about CBS All Access. So they're doing I think it was last week they started if you subscribe now you can get a month for free. Like what's his name? Patrick Stewart announced it, so it's kind of like you can catch up on Picard and stuff. So there was a commercial for it last night on Pluto or something, and they showed a series of shows, at least 10 or 15. And I literally was interested in 3 of them, and 2 of them were Star Trek. So, I don't know what's going on. I totally forgot about that Stand series actually. So, that's a really good question. I have no idea what's going on with Well, with anything in the world right now.
Right. No, so we were talking before the show. There are, I guess you have kind of a list of some of these big delays that have sprung up.
Oh yeah. So Sony announced this week that they were delaying Morbius. Shoot, what's the other big one? There was two really big ones. Oh, Ghostbusters Afterlife have both been delayed until next year. So there really hasn't been much in the way of movie news. So I was just kind of looking at the movies that have been canceled this year so far, and there's some pretty big names in there. Like Mulan was looking like it was going to be like the best live action Disney remake like to date,
Right.
and who knows when that's coming out. I mean, Black Widow was like Blake and I were talking about. It was like right around the corner, and we're not going to be seeing that anytime soon. New Mutants, I know it's kind of a joke, but it seemed like this time for real it was coming out.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, it's been pushed back yet again. And the funny thing is, some of these have date, like No Time to Die. It's been pushed back to, it's from April to, as of right now, it's going to come out in November. New Mutants is April to be determined.
Oh, it's never going to happen. Oh, man.
So I have a question here for you guys. So like the Sony movies, like Morbius and Ghostbusters, is this a thing that you guys are kind of like, I'm super hyped up about, like, or super bummed out, like that's going to come out sometime next year? Or should they just done like online type, like a rental type of thing? What's better at this point now? Are we renting movies? Are we gonna wait a whole year, or wait until till the world really ends so we can finally watch New Mutants?
Well, for New Mutants, it's like in that case, it's like whenever it comes out, it comes out. That one, I'm just like, whatever. It's just gonna come out randomly one day. So, but the other movies, like like we talked about this a while back about how it's definitely going in the direction of streaming. But I just love the theater experience so much that on a selfish level, I would like to see them released in theaters. I don't mind waiting until this all comes out, until this all ends, because I think going back to the movies will be that much more fun. Logically, I mean, we're going to be moving in that direction anyway. I don't know when to start doing that, to be honest with you, and it's all going to come down to, it's all financial is what it comes down to. So is it time to do it? I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, because we don't know how long this is going to last. And like something like Black Widow, I mean, is waiting until 2021 the best idea for it? I mean, is that window of opportunity gone for it at that point? Like, I don't know. I mean, some studio is going to have to take a really big risk eventually if this goes on for much longer, for a very long amount of time. Some studio is going to have to take a big risk on a major property, and then once that happens, then stuff like Spiral from the Book of Saw will come out and stuff like that.
Completely forgot about that. I'm glad you reminded me.
Well, I saw an ad for Trolls 2, which I know it's not a big movie. It's a
Trolls 2?
Trolls 2. Trolls 2. Where it said in theaters the 10th and streaming the 10th. So, and I think I like this idea. So let's say that
theaters.
That's exactly. So yeah, that's the thing. Like, so they're assuming that like this everything will die down by Easter, right? Which again, it's not.
Oh no, that ain't gonna happen. Yeah.
But would it be smarter now? What we have like with, and this is like a couple of like schmoes like us.
Speak for yourself.
It's kind of like the more logical thing to do, like VOD and show in threes. In theaters if we ever get theaters back.
One of the things that I could see happening is the rebirth of the drive-in movie theater. Like, let's pool our money together. Let's open a drive-in. I mean, we can show porno on Sundays. And no, but for real, in Austin, I know there one of the theaters was putting in their parking lot. They were playing on a big projector screen, like a drive-in movie, and they were doing their menu as a takeout service, so you could park in the parking lot and watch movies. I could actually see that happening more and more.
So
I would love for that to happen. Like I saw there was a smaller film festival was canceled. I want to say in New Jersey, and one of the things that the organizers there did, and it wasn't with all of them because creators and studios are very protective of their stuff, but the ones that they were able to agree to do, they basically showed the movies over the course of a weekend in an old drive-through theater. or the drive-in theater, which I thought was really cool. I thought that was really really cool, and it also adds to the whole like you have to go at this time to see it.
Right.
There was another festival in I want to say California where it's streaming, but it's only streaming at certain times, so it's not video on demand. It's like a streaming channel basically. So you still kind of get that festival atmosphere of you have to see it at these certain times or you miss out type of thing,
Okay.
which kind of reimagines the festival, but done on a virtual level, which I think is something that was probably going to happen anyway in the next few years. But to your question, Danny, I think that it's a great idea to do video on demand and theater release at the same time. Just because that's the changing, that's just the way things are in society now. Some people will go to theaters. Some people just they don't have the money or inclination to spend that much time in public. But
Right.
again, it's just like the studios and the actors and the agents and the PR people, they don't really care about all that. It's just these movies cost so much money to make nowadays that the only way that you can make your money back really is to show them 50 times a day in a movie theater and to charge $10, $15 a head every single time someone watches
Right.
it.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about it the other day, and I was like, I could kind of see like a premium like pay-per-view service, kind of like what you're talking about, where like it would be expensive. I mean, the studios I think would require it to be an expensive service, but then kind of like like you get streaming access at a certain time when new movies drop, and you could have the access of watching a brand new film in your home the day it released. But you're going to pay a premium over the course of a year for that. I could see something like that, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. What have you guys been watching? We'll start with you, Patrick, Nathaniel.
Okay, I'll keep it short. It looks like a lot, but it really is. So I saw last week I talked about cursed films. I saw the first episode of it. It's on The Exorcist, and really cool. Like the cool thing about the episode and the show in general is it does talk about the stories that happen in The Exorcist. There's quite a number of deaths associated with it, which is pretty odd. And there's all this strangeness, and I didn't know there was all that to it. But that's a very small part of the show. It actually gets into why people believe in exorcisms, why we feel the need to believe in them. And they actually have a couple of exorcisms on the show, and they do a pretty interesting thing. And yeah, they do a really interesting thing. It's kind of a way to. It's not a way to make anybody look dumb, but it does make you question beliefs. It's a really good show. It's going to be on Shudder. It's on Shudder on well, we're recording this on Wednesday, but it's debuting on Thursday. So not an April Fool's joke. It's on there. It's going to be a 5-part show. It's weekly episodes, but definitely worth checking. It's really really digestible. It's like 30 minutes straight into the point. But I thought the Exorcist episode it's probably the best one of it. It's really 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 good.
What are the other movies, real quick? Do you remember?
Exorcist,
Poltergeist, I'm sure.
Poltergeist, of course, yeah. The Omen,
Oh, okay.
The Crow,
Oh, yeah.
Twilight
and I forgot what the 5th one was.
It's not Twilight Zone.
Wild
It
Hogs.
is Twilight Zone. Yes, it's Twilight Zone.
Oh, shit. That's a bad one. Yeah, for real.
Yeah, so that one has it's interesting because there's the stories that you know about, or maybe you don't. I don't know, but I mean, like the Twilight Zone one is pretty famous, and same with Poltergeist. It's pretty famous, like what's associated with it. But then it gets into the Poltergeist one is really interesting because they talk about the skeletons, and one of the special effects guys gets very upset about the claims people have made against it and how people will associate the skeletons with real life death. It's and he's super upset about people believing stuff like that. But it's interesting. It's if you're into movies, if you're into scary movies, it's like an easy recommendation. If you're just into movies and hearing like juicy gossip about what happened, or these you're into those. Did you hear that this many people died during the filming of The Exorcist? Then it's really interesting. But and they have interviews with like Linda Blair and people who are associated with them. William Friedkin's on there, like, so it's super interesting to watch it. HBO and David Simon have this wonderful partnership that has led to like The Wire and Generation Kill and The Deuce. So Plot Against America is the David Simon's latest show for HBO. It's a miniseries, and And the most recent episode it's amazing. Like emotionally, it'll take you on the stereotypical roller coaster. It is so crazy. Like it's scary. It pisses you off. It somehow has I guess happy ending would be too strong of a term, but it's it'll bring a smile. It actually brings a smile to your face. What happens? It tells this story. Like what's going on in the country is horrible, but it's confined to. It's not just about Charles Lindbergh is now president and intolerance and is taking over the country. It's not about overthrowing him or anything about. It's how one family is dealing with what's happening in the country. So it's kind of the story is told on a smaller scale. So you're really involved with his family. It's not about the country at all. Like obviously against the backdrop of World War II and what's going on in the country, but the focus is on it's a family story. That's what it amounts to. Like there's no, I mean, unless I'm totally off, there's no hero that's going to assassinate Lindbergh. I mean, that's not going to happen. It's about a middle-class Jewish family that's trying to deal with this. It's super interesting. So you get all these dynamics to where it's able to, even in the face of this horrible intolerance that's happening, you can still get an ending that'll make you smile. Like it's really good. And then I saw a movie called Clover. It's just came out this year. It's a mob movie. It's a black comedy movie. But basically it's about it's pretty standard mob fare. These two brothers, they basically are indebted to the mob, and it's like a cat and mouse on the run type, like Midnight Run type of movie. The mob is chasing these brothers basically and trying to get their money back. Nothing that you haven't seen before, but the acting is really good. It's kind of like a midnight movie, kind of like an action movie from the 80s, and those aren't really mutually exclusive. They tend to go together.
Yeah.
They do this interesting thing though in the movie, and I don't know if it's intentional or not. That there's a running theme of death throughout and I don't mean people are dying a lot. Like people are constantly talking about it. Like someone will mention Chaz Palminteri's in it, and he mentions about saddest thing in the world is for a parent to witness the death of their child, not literally witness it, but to live past their child. It's the saddest thing in the world. But then they'll have conversations where children are talking about their parents have died, and they're very flippant about it. Like they're very like, it happened and I love them, but I accept that and I moved on with my life. And then they'll just have people who outright joke about death. And it's like this running theme throughout that just kind of springs up throughout it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. I always get that.
Oh yeah, no, I've never seen that.
No.
It's similar to that. If but it's basically about fate and how much control we have over fate and death and life and death. It's interesting. I saw this Russian movie, and I always go back to Pulp Fiction and how it was robbed because it was like an era-defining movie that to this day it influences movies, and not just in this country. So I saw this movie called Why Don't You Just Die from Russia. It's so good. It's really, 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 and it's very much influenced by Quentin Tarantino, and it made me realize that exploitation movies, like we talk about subgenres in horror. There should be a subgenre of exploitation movie that's just Tarantino-esque, because
yeah,
like this is straight up a Tarantino-esque exploitation movie. Basically, and it's non-linear, just like Pulp Fiction. It can, if you're not paying attention, you can kind of lose your way in it, but it's not so confusing that you're like you won't understand the story. But basically, a girl tells a guy to kill her father. She's like, he did this horrible thing to me when I was a child, and I need you to kill him. It turns out her father is a corrupt cop, and it leads to just all this wackiness, kind of like in Pulp Fiction with the Gimp and all that stuff being tied in. They even have a scene where someone, kind of like in Rikio, where someone punches someone in the head, and then there's an X-ray of their skull and their brain being smashed.
Oh shit! It's like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
it's like Mortal Kombat. It's like it's really funny, really gory, really it's straight and to the point, but super good. And then I really enjoyed the storytelling behind it, and it's genuinely laugh out loud funny, like just some good stuff in it. And then I saw so this movie, it's gonna sound like it's like the most morbid, terrible thing, but I saw a documentary called An Elephant in the Room, and it's about a place in New Jersey. It's a community center for children who have lost one or both of their parents. And it sounds like the most difficult thing to watch. And it's I guess it goes without saying that's a little sad. Like,
Yeah, you think?
but what you're getting out of it, so this won the grand jury prize at South by Southwest for documentary storytelling. So this movie has so much heart and humor in it because what you're getting is I think the oldest kid is maybe 11 and they're as young as 5, and you have one kid whose parents died within 18 months of each other, totally unrelated accidents.
Jesus.
So it's so interesting what they do is like, so the kids are narrating the entire thing and they're trying to explain death and they're trying to figure this out, and they're kids, so there's humor behind it, but it's not like this haha that's funny, and it doesn't downplay the death of it all.
Kids say the darndest things, death edition.
Exactly. It's like that. Like it's one person one kid's talking about heaven, how she's like, yeah, they know that it's so weird because it's like they don't understand what death actually is. Kind of like it's almost like how we are as adults. Like we know what death is, like, in a sense we know what death is, but we don't know what happens afterwards, like at all. But we kind of leave it as either you believe in heaven or you don't, or you believe in reincarnation or whatever, and you kind of leave it at that. We believe in what we believe in. It's interesting listening to these children try to explain it because there are some of them who are like they believe in heaven, and one child talks about it as a place beyond the clouds. One young girl talks about it as it's a pink planet where now her parents are partying all day every day and they're having the time of their lives and they're just waiting for her.
I like that. That's mine.
One kid is saying that when you're dead, you're dead. Like he's like, and he's telling them like that means I can't hang out anymore, and I'm stuck with my uncle now. like there's this. It's weird. Like it's really hard to explain it because it sounds it doesn't make a joke at all out of death, and there's some really tough scenes in it. Like when a new child comes to the center, like he's obviously in tears and he can't talk, and it follows the kids over the course of a year. And it's so interesting to watch because the kid comes in and he doesn't want to talk and he's just in tears. And another little boy comes up to him and he says, I understand what you're going through. You kind of see what it's like to be an adult in these kids, if that makes sense. Like
that would definitely be a thing that would make you grow up fast,
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Wow, that is kind of fascinating.
It is. It's on a very just like on a human studies level. Like, is it morbid subject matter? Yeah, undoubtedly. So there's no way you can say it isn't. But it doesn't like it's not one of those like I can't watch this. I'm constantly going to be in tears type of thing. It's fascinating. That's like it is so it'll make you laugh. I mean, it's sad, obviously. There's a scene where, in order to teach a kid about death, they have him they give him a teddy bear who has a terminal disease, basically, and he's saying goodbye to the bear over the course of a few weeks. Like he's having his final moments with. But that's how they're teaching them about loss and how to, and it's weird. It's like it's really, really, really good. Like I give it the highest recommendation but it's
I think I'll wait a while on this one.
It puts things in perspective.
Sure. For sure.
And it does kind of, it's one of those like, you throw it on the poster, the children, like from the mouths of babes type of thing. It'll tell you about yourself. But it's definitely worth a watch without a doubt. And yeah, that's all that I've seen this week. A bunch of fun, high energy.
Super duper. Danny, bring us up here a little bit, buddy. Pick us up here.
All right, so I'll
talk about the mule.
Oh man, okay. I will talk about the mule, and I will describe this the way I described it to my girlfriend. It's about a cute old little man that gets suckered into selling, like taking drugs across the country. Tell me that
little man.
He's a cute little man. Like, have you guys seen this movie?
No.
I know you're talking Clint Eastwood, and he would kick your ass. If it was I would not refer to him as a cute little man, but I mean.
So the mule is actually about a florist, Clint Eastwood, that essentially runs his business into the ground because this little thing called the internet. So he goes to his granddaughter's engagement party, and this guy kind of kind of like ropes him in to deliver essentially. And it's just a movie about him just running drugs and the ups and downs of the cartel that he's in. And Bradley Cooper is in this movie, Michael Pena, and you know what, man? It's like it's very endearing. Like this is.
Yeah, I've heard it's really good.
It's really fucking good. Like it's beautifully shot. Clint Eastwood is a really good fucking actor. He's a really good dancer. The parts that they show him dancing, he's just a 90-year-old
Dancer.
cute thing. But the thing that like,
cute again.
Isn't Clint Eastwood the one who said like America's been pussified?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just saying because you're referring to him as a cute old man. He's talking about
He's more Archie Bunker than anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you kind of get that character, like you get Clint Eastwood a lot of it, like nobody needs the internet, like and he uses
terrible.
He uses a couple of slurs that I don't want to use against African Americans and Mexicans, but he speaks really good Spanish, which is surprising. But it's a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. Like we're doing drug movies, so I was like, you know what? For the next 30 days, I'll watch drug related movies, and The Mule is right up on there, and I never seen it, so I pretty much made myself like really really happy. And at the end, like I was really rooting for him. It's kind of like this weird Breaking Bad story. But about a 90-year-old man that fucking like mules fucking drugs across the fucking country, and Las Cruces is represented in here as El Paso, Texas. But I you know what I will do? I highly recommend this movie. It's really really good. The cat and mouse game towards the end gets really really good. And some really good dramatic pieces, and it's really really good.
I hope all I'm picturing is just Smokey and the Bandit with Clint Eastwood in the drivers.
You know what, man? You will see. One of the best things about this
better have an orangutan in there too.
I'm not gonna say anything, but there are also some really cool like nods to classic country, and the soundtrack's really really good with like selected pieces of jazz. It's just really really good. It's a really just really good movie, and compared to I saw yesterday the David or Danny Boyle movie, Beatle tribute movie, and oh man, I wish I had a lot of praise for this movie. I really 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 do wish I had more praise for this movie. The best thing about this movie, and this is how I'm gonna leave it, is that I got to listen to the Beatles all day. The day that
was really nice of you to put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pat, did you like that movie?
No, I like Blinded by the Light.
Oh, okay, that's
the
Bruce
boss.
Springsteen. Yeah.
Boss, yeah. And I like it made me really want to watch Blinded by the Light a lot more. And it answers a lot of questions for me for last year's Black Friday deals, where this movie was like for $3 as a Blu-ray, and I was like, yeah.
And that's still too much.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I spent I don't know, like 2 hours out of my time. I think I went to take a shower halfway through this movie. It's just
that bad.
It's a fucking terrible movie, man. It's really fucking terrible. It's probably the worst movie that I've seen this year, and it's only March, April, May. I don't even know anymore.
Let me ask you this, why? Why is it so terrible? What is the thing that stands out as it being so bad?
So the whole thing about this movie, I think it's the acting. That's portrayed. I don't even remember the main guy, but he is a down on the luck musician. He decides to quit when a festival gig doesn't really pan out for him, and he's like, you know what, I'm finally gonna.
Shit, we understand.
yeah. And then he gets for 12 seconds, lights go out, like whole electricity, like in cars and fucking phones, planes. Everything just like shuts down for 12 seconds. And then when he gets hit by a bus, and then he wakes up and there's no more Beatles.
Were they driving the bus?
I wish they were. I wish
Yoko was.
Yeah, right. I got you again, Beatles.
I'll do it twice.
But I don't know. There's really the plot is like so dumb because they pick and choose the things that don't exist. So like Oasis is not a thing.
Oh, they
Coca-Cola.
show that. Yeah, in the trailer they show that actually. They're like, "Who's Oasis?" or something like that.
Yeah, and they take a direct shot at Oasis like that.
Yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, but then here's the thing, like, all right, the Beatles don't exist, right? But
Well,
these
neither would a
people,
fucking ton of other bands.
yeah. So I was like, why not like these people could still form something fucking huge? Like Paul McCartney has wings, and
Yeah. True.
Ringo has like his star-studded.
Oh, fucking Ringo.
Well, either way, like all this shit.
John Lennon had Mark Chapman.
and he was alive, and he's alive. So, but.
Oh.
But there's so many things that I was just like, you know what? No, I don't. I guess I put a lot of reality into this. I was like, no, they would still be a thing. This movie is just dumb, and I feel like Danny Boyle wanted to like just show that if the Beatles didn't even exist, or like in a world that didn't exist, and there's like a few people that did remember them, one of them would be a musician, and at that a very subpar musician. Because even they're like the whole run of the joke is that he's subpar and nobody really cares for him or how he looks. It's just good music, and it's just I don't know. I did not like anything about it at all about this movie. And at the end of it, I was like, the Beatles are a really great band. I'm gonna listen to a lot of Beatles this day. I think it was on Saturday, and I'm not gonna let anything else like bring me down like this movie. And and then the last thing I watched, me and my girlfriend finally finished the Tiger King, which I don't know why I'm leaving this with a downer. I should have ended it with a mule, but
This is the exact opposite of what I thought was going to happen. So, just so you know. But go ahead.
Damn you, coronavirus! Damn you.
Yeah, ruining everything.
So the Tiger King is white trash at its very fucking best.
I've heard it described as white trash by so many people. That must be the perfect descriptor for it.
It is the perfect description of this fucking show. It's white trash. It's trash TV, but like the main character, Joe Exotic, the Tiger King, is so. All right, I'm gonna put politics into this. This is what Donald Trump wish he would be.
Gay?
Gay Republican, and everybody fucking loves him. Like, it is insane how this guy is like.
Well, shit, isn't that what he like kind of is?
Gay?
Shit, I don't know. I don't know how that fucker swings. He was hanging out with all sorts of fucked up people.
That's very, very, very true. Well,
he can do no wrong. It seems like.
Yeah,
it's the most powerful.
Well, this guy. So there's a lot of like, he done it, she done it type of thing, because this Joe Exotic is the way the narrative kind of pushes it. It's like he kind of like got ousted. It gets very Game of Thrones, so it gets like very bloodthirsty.
White trash Game of Thrones.
Perfect, dude.
This is what it is. Game of
Put
Thrones
it on the box.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Game of Thrones white trash. But man, it's so fucking crazy. And at the end of it, it was like he just lost sight of it all. It was supposed to be about preservation, about the tigers, and you're just like, oh, that's right. Like they made the first episode is about like preservation, like about the fucking zoo, and it just goes into like drugs, sex, murder for hire, political runnings. It is the weirdest and fun. Like if you guys have a day, 2 days to probably get through this, I would highly recommend. Anybody that's listening to us right now, if you haven't seen the Tiger King, go watch it now. It's just that towards the end of it, you're just gonna feel like complete shit because it's just a shitty like. It's not like one of those endings where you're like, well, yeah, that's true. But you're just like, oh man, they had it all, and they just kind of like just tear you a new one. Like fuck you.
Oh, it's like the rise and fall of Creed. Am I right?
Yeah.
So you're saying I should just stick with documentaries about kids who lost one and or both of their parents?
Yeah. You'll do a lot much better than that because kids will eventually become grown-ups and become Joe Exotic. So that's much better hope.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. Is like there's gonna be all these people cooped up right now, all these kids watching Joe Exotic, and like we've just created an entire new generation of exotics.
And you're not talking World of Warcraft.
No, far from it. No, not at all. I don't want to get into their guild. All right. Anyway, so what did I watch here? I watched The Exorcist 3. It's funny you were talking about The Exorcist earlier. So I kind of watch this movie all the time. I kind of come to realize. I've talked about it multiple times. Yeah, dude. So I want to say 10 or 12 years ago, whenever I started really listening to podcasts and all the early horror movie podcasts, Exorcist 3 got brought up so many times that I couldn't even tell you how many. Virtually every show I listened to brought it up, talking about how underrated it was, how you never expect Exorcist 3 to be this fun, cool movie. And so I kind of, once I got a hold of it, it was actually kind of hard to find for a while. Mm-hmm. And it's everywhere now. I think it's on Amazon Prime, which is what I watched it on. But it's George C. Scott, Brad Dourif. It's a cast you wouldn't expect in this movie, and it's awesome. It's got some really cool scenes, and the Gemini Killer is Brad Dourif, and he's kind of the serial killer embodiment of the same demon that possessed Reagan. It's kind of a continuation. Exorcist 2 is really weird. Do you remember that one, Pat?
Yeah, The Heretic?
Is that the one that takes place in an apartment complex, basically?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it is Linda Blair, right? I think it is.
It is Linda Blair. Yes.
Okay. So this one is much different. Have you guys seen it? I know I've brought it up before, but have you guys actually seen this?
No.
I've seen it once, a long time ago, and I just remember that. I think the killer. There's a point where I don't know. I guess they catch him and he's in jail, or maybe he starts off in jail, and that's my only memory of it. Is I think he ends up killing someone pretty brutally, and if I remember correctly. But it's been years and years.
I would definitely check it out. I mean, one of these definitely these movies while you're cooped up, you should check out. Again, I think it's underrated. I think a lot of people still haven't seen it. There's some real. I think there's one really iconic kill in it. That is it's still kind of shocking when you watch it. It's the way it hits visually. It's it's exceptionally well done. What else did I do? Forged in Fire. Okay, this is interesting. Well, not really. But this is a show, I think it's on History Channel. It's been on for several seasons now. And it's kind of like one of these it's like Cake Wars or something like that. But the whole idea is these metalsmiths, blacksmiths, and bladesmiths. They kind of put them in this competition to make a knife. They have to forge a knife out of raw materials, and then they put these knives through tests, and then the winner of that little section gets to go on to make a historically accurate weapon from the past. And so it's actually really interesting. Sometimes they do fantasy stuff. They had one that was a barbarian episode where they had to kind of do a Conan the Barbarian kind of sword at the end. Musketeers Rapier, Chris. They do all sorts of really cool stuff. There's a Halloween episode where they do a hatchet or a machete type thing. So they do all these kind of themed episodes. But it's actually kind of fascinating to watch. Somebody take a coil spring off an old pickup truck and heat it up and bang it with a hammer, and they'll turn it into a knife. By the end of this thing, they will have turned. And some of these guys are incredible. True artists that can kind of do this stuff, and it's super cool. A buddy of mine makes knives, and I've spent way too much money with him. I'm a big fan of sharp, pointy things. And this kind of feeds on that. Probably not for everybody, but again, this is kind of mindless. Put it on the background. I had it on when I was doing meal prep stuff for the week, and really fun to kind of look over and see what the kind of these things these guys create. And like I said, sometimes it's they'll do stuff from movies and fantasy too. So pretty cool. I would definitely check it out. I've also been listening to a ton of music. You brought up the Beatles and stuff. This is I forget what anniversary of the releasing of, or I guess maybe last week was, Houses of the Holy from Led Zeppelin.
Oh, fuck.
And man, I went back and listened to that. It's probably my favorite Zeppelin album. I haven't listened to it in a while. But incredible. Every song on that record is fucking kick ass. And I guess speaking of the 70s and, Led Zeppelin, a band people loved to flame a bong, get real high, smoking fat joints. Led Zeppelin. And so
I thought this was leading to some Wiccan.
No, that's sage. I think they burn a lot of sage. But no,
We're
it
gonna
is.
go straight into Lord of the Rings.
Hey, well, Brad Dourif, tie there.
Yeah.
So drug movies. It's 420. It's April 2020. We're kind of being funny with it. But I mean, it's kind of a prevalent and well-known kind of genre, I would say. And I'm thinking back, I was kind of surprised to how early some of the stuff I had watched. But first off, what was the first quote unquote drug movie you guys remember watching?
The first, and this isn't a drug movie. I'll get into a drug movie, but the very first scene I remember, like hardcore drug scene, I remember, was the donkey in Bachelor Party where it's doing all those pills and snorting all that coke. But
that was Jim Belushi, wasn't it?
that was Jim Belushi. Yes, it was a Saturday Night Live skit that I'm thinking of.
Or John, excuse me, John, not Jim.
John. Yeah, Jim is the unfunny one.
Yeah, he's the undrug using one.
The first like actual hardcore drug movie that I remember watching was Less Than Zero.
Ooh,
And
yes.
the reason that we watched it, my sister and I, when we watched it a lot, which is kind of weird because it was like 80, 85, 86, so we were like really young watching it. But it was Robert Downey Jr., who it's so crazy that he still has a very prolific acting career now. But before that movie, we had only seen him in like Weird Science and things like that. So we just thought it was a comedy, and then we watched it, and you're like, "Holy shit, this isn't funny at all." It's actually very sad. But actual hardcore drug movie, even though when I first saw it, I knew that they were drug addicts, and it was kind of weird because is it Andrew McCarthy? Is that his name?
Or Less Than Zero? Yeah, I think it's something McCarthy.
It's Andrew. I just didn't know his last name. Well, that dude, like, he's the good guy. He's the protagonist, but he's also into that scene, and I think it's the first time I had ever seen where the good guy is also heavily into drugs, or at least used to be into drugs at one point in their life, and it was so strange to me to see this movie that was just. I mean, it was all about the drug scene. Like that's all it was. And then, it plays into like power and money and all that stuff. But yeah, that's the first movie that I ever saw that was totally about drugs, and very good movie. And I saw it 2 or 3 years ago, and it stands up very well.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It was like almost a direct parallel to fucking Downey Jr.'s life. Kind of.
Yeah.
He was kind of a fucked up guy back then. So pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. When you look back on it, and it's like that was. I mean, he wasn't acting during that movie. It's so strange.
Right. Real fucking high on drugs.
I think my first drug movie was forced by my dad. So,
I thought you were gonna say it was Forrest Gump. I was like, oh.
No.
Forced by My Dad is a different movie altogether.
Yeah, that's very yeah. It was forced upon me by my dad, and it was Pink Floyd's The Wall.
Oh shit!
I had to be like, I don't know, pretty young in this whole thing, and I remember that shit gave me nightmares. So I know it does do. There's some drugs in it, but I feel like the whole intention on that was to be on drugs and being a very young child. That shit scared the fuck out of me, especially towards the end where the judge is on that.
Oh yeah.
The Wall. It is like the weirdest. Well, it's a surrealistic film. Obviously, a musical movie. I guess I don't even know what to call that film itself. But man, it fucked me up. It fucked me up for so long that I didn't really want to see the movie for the longest time. I think I started seeing it again, like almost casually, like when I turned 12, 13 maybe. But man, I think that's my first like drug movie. But if we're like doing like drugs, like it's Cheech and Chong. That my dad again made me watch because he's like, these guys are funny, and that guy's.
What's your favorite
the Corsican brother? The Corsican
brother.
Brothers.
The Corsican Brothers is great. Yeah, of course.
I love the Corsican Brothers. Yeah, that's a good one.
What's your favorite one of the Cheech and Chong?
Dude, I have
Up
not.
in Smoke, How High? Or not How High, Up in Smoke, High.
How High is Method Man?
You know what? I fucking love How High. We're going to talk about that later this month. We might do a whole show on it.
Nice.
That'd be a fun one.
Well, I mean, so first drug movie. I mean, I think we have to give a nod to like Alice in Wonderland and Dumbo and some of those kind of early Disney movies that kind of played with some of that
The
psychedelic
pink elephants.
pink
Yeah, that's really good.
elephants, yeah, and hookah smoking caterpillars. You know, so definitely, I think those need a nod. I would say, bizarrely enough, I guess the first drug movie and drug story. I remember being like, "Oh fuck!" Like everyone's addicted to that. That's like the whole point of this whole thing. Dune.
Oh shit!
It,
Oh yeah.
it's
Fuck.
the spice,
Yeah.
the melange, is the whole driving force behind the whole story. It's like basically the entire galaxy is addicted to it, and the reason that these families are fighting over the planet of Arrakis, is because the spice grows all over the top of this thing, and this just happens to have these giant Beetlejuice worms that will fucking destroy you. There's a few that I have here that I'm like, they really like stood out to me as being like number one good movies, but also like kind of mind bending and definitely played on that. Do you guys have before I go? Do you guys have some like real standout memorable ones that kind of stuck with you?
Yeah, I do. I have some. I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say the one that sticks with me the most, and this kind of goes back to music you were talking about. You listen to Zeppelin. So I'm a huge fan of Pulp. I love Pulp, and if you really want to see some good writing, like Jarvis Cocker, Common People, and Disco 2000, there's like two of the saddest stories in songs that you'll ever hear. But Trainspotting, Pulp has a song called Mild End in it, and we were talking about Danny Boyle earlier, but Trainspotting, I was in high school when it came out. Kelly McDonald, she was underage for Mark, but she was like my age, so she was super hot. It just kind of catches that moment of that age where the whole at the end where he's like, choose life, choose death.
Yeah.
It's the soundtrack is amazing. Like the acting is really, really good. It's funny, like with the dirtiest toilet in Scotland and all that good stuff. Like just an amazing story, but and it also deals with some pretty hardcore stuff. Like he's a heroin addict and he's trying his best, and ultimately he doesn't really get over it. It's really good movie, and that one, and also a good book too, a really good.
Oh, it's a
book.
book.
I've heard it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good book, and the story for me it sticks with me just because of the age I was that I saw it, and it's like, when I saw it, it was kind of like almost like kind of it's a very hardcore movie to see when you're like whatever 16 or whatever, and you're seeing this in a movie theater, and maybe you shouldn't be, maybe the ticket person just kind of hooked you up or whatever, but that one I have really fond memories of seeing. I remember watching it all the time when it was released on VHS.
That's a good one. Yeah, I was trying to have my girlfriend watch that one because she hasn't really seen it, or she hasn't seen it. But I was bringing up one that really stuck with me was Requiem for a Dream. I think it's just like you, Pat.
No.
That's the movie that shall not be named, Danny.
We will not talk about that movie at all. It's a great movie. We all know it's a great movie. There's nothing to say about the movie. It's amazing.
Well, I think
that's all we can say. About
no, it's a really great movie.
No. We were not gonna talk.
I was gonna say that when I saw it with my mom, and that's how we kind of like it was a very like fucking powerful film. Like, and you're right. It's just it's a really good film, but it's really fucked. Like it's just like, I think that's where with these type of movies, like even for work for Trainspotting and everything, you have these movies where you're at the age and you're just like, well, fuck, I'm like, I still haven't gone back to see Requiem for a Dream just because it's not one of those things like Trainspotting. Like, I feel like, oh yeah, like it's fun. It's fucking dark as fuck, but I'm not like.
Have you ever, just real quick, have you ever seen it more than the one time? Because I've only ever watched it the one time.
I watched it twice.
Yeah, see, that's kind of the point. Is like it's a really good movie, but holy cow, it's not. I don't think it's not anything that somebody would. I mean, I guess there are people that do watch it over and over, but I couldn't.
Yeah, I know, and it's like there's like there's the one with Ryan Gosling and Blue Valentine. It's not even a drug movie, but it's like fuck. I saw it the one time, and that was it. Like, I would never go back to it. I'll talk
Attack
about
of the Clones. Yeah, I know. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. It's just like
like revisiting movies. I when I first saw Old Boy, the original one, I watched it every single day for like 2 weeks straight. I absolutely loved that movie. And my roommate was like, told me he just couldn't understand how I could watch something like that every single. Like I would come home
Kinda
from
with
work
him.
and just I just thought it was so like I love the storytelling, love the direction, and it has nothing to do with drugs either. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can understand. There's you mentioned that there might be someone who can watch that movie over. I've seen it
I
twice,
don't.
but I can't imagine. I'll never watch it again. Ever will I watch it again? I mean, it might be a perfect movie and like acting and directing and all. Like I mean,
Mhm.
and it definitely makes you feel something because I like you two said you wouldn't watch it. I've met multiple people who've said that they will never watch it again. So it makes you feel something. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's no
Right.
Tiger King.
Well, and then you were talking about stuff that's kind of based on some books, and it made me also think of The Beach.
Oh,
The Beach is a really great book, and I actually really like the movie a lot too. Obviously, kind of revolves around like a kind of hippie pot smoking commune island. But yeah, very good. My probably most memorable one, and again, it's a movie I watch over and over and over. I'm a huge fan of the author of the book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Is probably the one as far, and where the Buffalo roam too. Bill Murray's take on Hunter Thompson is a fantastic, drugged out movie. But Fear and Loathing, man, it's. I just watched it probably. Let me think. Probably at the very beginning of this year, like right in January, and man, it holds up. It's got really great small performances from some really great people. There's some just iconic lines. There's some really great. They actually take lines from the book. That's what I love, and kind of interject them in a really cool way into the storytelling of that. And then there's the one scene that's like kind of just the depravity, the loathing of the whole thing. Is there's this scene where they're at this shitty diner, and only what I could presume would be at the time North Las Vegas, outside of downtown. And Dr. Gonzo, I guess, Benicio del Toro's character, he basically sexually assaults a woman with a knife, and it's one of the most like visceral scenes, and it's kind of lost in a movie that's it's about the drugs, and he sees everybody looks like eels and dinosaurs. There's some really great acting and really terrifying imagery and stuff, and especially in that scene, for sure. And just I would consider Fear and Loathing a far out movie, like really exaggerated, some really exaggerated drug scenes and stuff like that. How much for the chimp? But well, do you guys have any of these movies that are like way out there that you kind of go back to?
Actually, I wanted to ask you really, really quick. Sorry, Pat.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you this question for you and Pat. Have you ever seen Fear and Loathing sober, or have?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because
Yeah.
I've only seen it the one time, and it wasn't sober, and I don't know if I really liked it. Like if it was a good film, and so I always
It
had
is
like
good. Yeah, I mean,
It
I
is-
would say
it's good.
Yeah.
It's really
yeah.
good.
So
Yeah.
okay, it's just
Terry
I never.
Gilliam, man.
I like him. I like Terry. I like all the things that I see sober, but I've never seen the movie sober, and all the experience. I guess is a bad trip or whatever. It wasn't great for me. So all of that was just like I was just like wash it away. Like
Yeah.
I'll never watch this movie ever again. But yeah, I guess that was my question. Like, have you guys seen
Oh
this
yeah,
movie?
totally. Probably.
Yeah, like I Terry Gilliam, I think is a great. Like I love Time Bandits and Adventures of Baron Munchausen. I love those movies. So Terry Gilliam, like I don't know, he might get. I don't know if I've ever seen it where I wasn't sober, to be honest with you.
I guarantee I watched it in college, cut a time or two, just like or something.
I'm actually not a big fan of movies that are Terry Gilliam's he just has he's very creative. He has a wild, like Brazil's a really good example of how wild his imagination can be. But with far out like drug movies, like I'm really not a big fan of it. Like I kind of get tired of the psychedelics and the like that episode of The Simpsons where Johnny Cash is a wolf. Like I kind of get tired of that kind of those visuals. I get tired of eventually. For me, like I guess a far out drug movie to me, I'll stick with Johnny Depp is something like Blow. Like I like with a very layered story, but the person is and I guess to an extent Goodfellas too, like where the person is so drugged out and making the decisions are so like incomprehensible. They're so poorly thought out that you kind of get caught up in that world where it's still a far out drugged out movie, but they don't really need the wacky visuals to go with it, if that makes sense. I mean, so
Right.
to me,
yes, that makes sense.
yeah, being caught in the world of Blow is like just as crazy to me as being caught in the world of Fear and Loathing. They're two entirely different movies, and I like them for different reasons. But
Mhm.
like a far out drug movie, gosh, I can't really think of one. I mean, like maybe Dazed and Confused is like I'm really not a fan of. I'm just like the big drug movies. I'm just not. I get really tired of that.
Sure. Danny, do you have one?
Yeah, the way that I guess Pat put it so poetically, because there's so many things that like Goodfellas is something that where the character is drugged out, but honestly, I was thinking of two different movies, where the reasoning is kind of more of a selfish thing. Limitless with Bradley Cooper.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a
That's
good
a
pick.
very good one. Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it because he essentially was a loser. Just he was like at the bottom of the fucking barrel, and he took this, this brain enhancing drug, where he finally like goes to become essentially like almost being killed. And it's probably one of the best jokes in The Office too. Is that the one where he's limitless? But it's a really good movie, and I don't think people see it as a drug movie, but it's essentially a
Sure.
a psychotic of sorts, or narcotic of some sorts. And then the other one I wanted to really say, and this does go with the visuals, A Scanner Darkly.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah,
Again,
that's a good one too.
Robert Downey Jr. I think there's going to be a theme in this whole month, right?
I think this is post rehab though. I think that might have been like.
Oh, it's supposed to be rehab, but I mean, it's kind of he's the conspiracy theorist in this one, right? I'm trying to remember. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, it's really fun. I think the visuals really work well for this, and plus the war on drugs failed, so it's just all these things layered on top of that. It's just a really good movie, and it's one I would recommend.
All right, that qualifies. I was about to call you a straight edge pussy, but I got you. So, no, my pick would, and it's way out there compared to what you guys are talking about. It's another thing based off a book, from William S. Burroughs. It's called Naked Lunch.
Naked Lunch. I know where you're going with.
So Cronenberg. Cronenberg pops up on the show all the time.
Yes.
Cronenberg's kind of the new Oliphant. He's kind of just showing up everywhere.
Jesus.
But so this movie, and the movie does a really good job, I would say, of conveying kind of what the story is. Starring Peter Weller, RoboCop. It's, oh god, how do I describe this movie? So
Underrated.
Highly underrated. So a guy gets addicted to insecticide.
Yeah.
He gets addicted to pyrethrum, and he uses it to get it's like an allegory for heroin. And because I believe Burroughs was a big junkie. But he starts getting he has a typewriter that kind of like, I think it's got a giant dick and it's like a cockroach. And it starts to tell him things. He doesn't know whether he's hallucinating. It's very David Lynch kind of like Eraserhead-ish in a way. You don't know if he's hallucinating these things or if it's real. And it's kind of it's really hard to describe, but it's definitely way out there. Like I said, it's kind of an allegory for being an addict and what addiction will make you do, and the things you might not know that you did. I think the whole thing is he kills his wife, and whether that's an accident or not, that's kind of up to your interpretation. But I would highly recommend it. It's 1991, I think, something like that.
Okay.
Definitely check out Use of Naked Lunch.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. I think most memorable at that time, I remember the cockroach scene would kind of be parodied a lot and kind of spring up in a lot of places. But a really good book, and It's an interesting book, I should say, and a very good. Cronenberg does a really good job adapting the book, without a doubt. Um, Another kind of different kind of drugged out movie is Wolf of Wall Street, and that's the comedy that I was talking about. But Wolf of Wall Street is a very funny movie, but I mean, he's totally caught up with his addictions, and again, you're caught in this fast-paced, drug-induced world where it's kind of a rise and fall type of thing, but you kind of lose track of what's real and what's not, and as the character does also, he literally at one of the more climactic scenes, like he thinks he's driving perfectly fine, and it turns out he's driving anything but that. That movie kind of plays with your head too, but I mean, it's a straight up movie. It's it's about greed and corruption and stuff, but that's a really good drug movie, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot. There's definitely a lot out there, and we'll get to more of these as the month goes on.
And we can't forget that drug addiction isn't limited to people in front of the camera. You guys on Four Eyed Horror talked about a movie in which the director was crazy coked out. Maximum Overdrive was directed by Stephen King during the most I don't know, wired moments in his life.
Yeah,
as he's described, he blames the movie on his coke addiction, which why I forgive him for the heavy use of AC/DC in that movie. You would have to be on. You would have to be on cocaine to use just AC/DC for a soundtrack.
Still a great movie. Still a great movie. And if you can find the cut where the kid gets run over by the steamroller and pops like a fucking balloon, it's totally worth it.
I'm totally down with the Coke machine just launching like fucking a cannon hits that dude right in the nuts, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
That reminds me, George C. Scott. So I was doing my so I gave up on my Simpsons run. I'm done. I'm gonna eight and a half seasons in, and I'm done. But there is a part where they're holding a film festival in Springfield, and Homer wants to vote for a movie. It's just called Football and Groin, which it's literally what it sounds like. But it's remade into,
groin. Yeah.
But it gets remade into like a Hollywood picture with George C. Scott, and then the football hits him, and he just goes, "Oh, my groin!" Every Saturday you can find this here. The rest of the week you can go to adventuresinpoortaste.com, where you can find all our other podcasts. There's Talking Tauntauns, there's our General Comics podcast, there's Poor Taste Wrestling. You ain't doing anything else, so you might as well listen to these podcasts. You can also catch up with our reviews, and you could leave your thoughts. This year marks the 4-year anniversary of Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. You can go to YouTube, and Zack Snyder actually had a watch party, and he apparently he had, it was a very interesting, some of the things that he had. He kind of storyboarded it and talked about ideas that he had for it and Justice League. But Rory Wilding, who's a huge Batman fan, wrote it. He watched the live stream of it and wrote an article about some of the stuff that Snyder revealed. But check it out.
You can follow Adventures in Movies on Twitter over at APT Movies, or you can follow us individually. You can follow Nathaniel, or Pat, as I like to call him, on Instagram at Nathan Port Taste. You can find me, Danny, on Twitter and Instagram over at Default Player. I'm also doing this weird live stream. If you guys want to see me throughout the week, do that on Instagram. It'll be fine. You can follow Mr. Blake Dope over.
Oh, just a dope?
Yeah.
All right.
Just Dope. Actually, I should have just said you can follow Dope over on Four Eyed Horror.
I was gonna say something nice about you on my part. No, I'm not. So, no, dope is I guess a good expression now. Next week, special for Danny. It's his fucking birthday. It's also special because we did a little watch party for Encounters of the Fifth Kind. I think that's it. We'll talk about that. And Danny, Mr. Danny over there, fucking beautiful, wonderful Danny, default_player. Check him out. Is going to host a trivia show. So that should be interesting. Tune in.
I thought for sure, because Danny's doing the wrestling names here. Like Rob Van Dam went by RVD420. So I thought you would do something with Blake.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 3 more weeks.
Yeah, this is true. You can squeeze it in there. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, or you can go to Spotify. You can go to Stitcher if you're not so high that you can't find it. You might be able to find us on there. You can go to the website. The podcast is on there. Make sure to give us a rating or just tell a friend to listen. And that's our cue. We'll talk to you next week.
I'm seeing colors, man.
Adios.